Batman and Robin, not the Joel Schumacher one, the one from 1949, is DC's first sequel, though, like the Batman and Robin movie that's more famous from the 90s, we have a new Batman with Robert Laurie in the cape and cowl in place of Lewis Wilson, and Johnny Duncan in place of Douglas Croft. This movie is a fairly soft sequel, and to call it a sequel at all may technically be inaccurate, but from a format perspective it's very similar and the vibes are here to match. Continuity between the two are fairly non-existent, though with it, much like the first, opting to emulate the old comic book style of being essentially a one-off adventure that sees the status quo more or less reset by the end of the film. We are, of course, getting ahead of ourselves a bit. As I alluded to in my review of the 1943 Batman film, however, I got this film at an Office Max in their bargain DVD bin that every store used to have, like anywhere you went, gas stations, bargain DVD bin. I liked Batman, and I didn't see this old film, so I watched it a few times back in the day, and it also introduced me to the format of the film serial, something up to that point I didn't know existed. So, I may be one of the few people in my generation that can say that I somewhat grew up with film serials. A subspecies of film and a prototype to television kind of molded into one. I have come to somewhat adore the format for its relative simplicity and lighthearted stories. Anyone else a fan of Canadian Mounties versus Atomic Invaders? After a brief aside to film Bruce Gentry, Daredevil of the Skies, Spencer Gordon-Bennett, who directed Congo Bill and Superman for National Comics, returned to their well of characters to direct a film based on Batman and Robin, taking over for Lambert Hillier, who directed the original Batman film back in 1943. The production faced some cost-saving measures, with the Batmobile cheapened even further from the original film to a Mercury 8, which, from my understanding of cars, was pretty much consumer station wagon back in the day. You know, it ain't the Tumbler. But at least he had a car and didn't need to take the bus.
Video shows intense moments between a bus driver and passenger on board a DDOT bus. It happened back on September 8th. The incident led to bus drivers across the city to walk out on the job.
That's all we really know about the production of the film, honestly. As I said, the actors who previously played Batman and Robin were replaced. This film coming out 6 years after the previous, and honestly being so basic, it's honestly up to headcanon if you want to consider this a follow-up or not. The obvious intention, as with Superman, was to basically film the concept of Batman, with ideas like continuity not really being all that important. This is long before the days of the cinematic universe, and even pretty well before sequels to popular films was the norm. Columbia simply decided that since Superman made money, it would hire the guy who made that film to do the new Batman film. Honestly, judging by the history of film re-releases at the time, I honestly bet they would have never made this film and just reran the original had it not been for the film's heavy reliance on World War II and the general xenophobic themes of the film.
It is evident that if the Batman is to be destroyed, I must accomplish it myself.
Now, I'm certainly not implying Columbia felt bad for Japanese people for their treatment in the first film. I am simply stating that it was old news and they wanted to make something more universal, with this film in a relative sense, not having, from a plot perspective, anything that really ties it to a specific period in American history, though obviously there's some period-accurate cars and stuff since it was that period. The plot is pretty much as you'd expect, the same beats as always, just with a few goofy twists. Bruce Wayne and Dick Grayson are Batman and Robin. A crime boss supervillain, the Wizard, is causing problems across Gotham City from his secret crime lair under a giant mountain. Batman is naturally pissed off about this, since this evil man is causing issues and Batman simply does not fuck with evil men. Anyhow, the Wizard has a gang, and in that gang is Jimmy Vale, brother of news photographer and damsel Vicky Vale. The rest you probably could surmise. The Wizard wants to do some shit to make money, get diamonds to power his MacGuffin, and rule crime in Gotham, though this all comes to a head when the Wizard learns to become invisible, and the movie basically changes into a Batman versus the Invisible Man film. Which of course I'm here for. Anyhow, there's also a paraplegic professor who is real sketchy, so everyone thinks he's the Wizard, though no one knows how this is possible since the Wizard is presumably not a paraplegic. Turns out it wasn't him and the Wizard is a man Carter. the paraplegic professor's assistant's evil twin. So then Carter kills his brother to get close to the professor so he could frame him. I don't know, the endings are always kind of a big okay buddy moment in these serials, and this one's no exception. Might even be a little more extremely stupid than the norm.
You, Carter, are the wizard. You forced Hamill to make that confession by threatening his life.
That's right.
Commissioner Gordon wants to see you.
This film adds 2 new characters to the DC universe of serials, I guess. Vicky Vale replaced Linda Page to be the damsel in this film, and was a recent addition to the comics at the time this film was made, debuting in Batman 49 from 1948, a year before this film dropped. She's a journalist in Gotham City that is obsessed with Batman. In this film, she's more of a photographer, but the end result is the same. She's pretty much just Lois Lane, but for Batman instead of for Superman. As a result, I think the character was written that way too, getting into jams since she's too nosy and whatnot. Commissioner Gordon first appeared in Detective Comics 27, and like Golden Age Gordon, shares way too much with Bruce Wayne on active investigations.
Case is loaded with suspects, yet we haven't uncovered a single clue in the whole lot that would help us identify the wizard. Only last night we investigated a warehouse on Marine Street and found exactly nothing.
Like the comics, he has a bat signal, but this is notably a very, very cheap attempt to create this. This probably isn't the Gordon you know very well, since he was largely reinvented over the years, till he started looking and acting more like the Batman Year One version, which is kind of the norm, but for the era, it's actually not too inaccurate for Commissioner Gordon. Batman or Bruce Wayne in this film hasn't changed much from last time, though he is less racist.
Are you Jap devil?
He is Adventure Man, who is just kind of around wherever Batman isn't, though no one suspects he's truly Batman. Robert Lowry is a good Batman, though I think I like Lewis Wilson's Bruce Wayne a bit more. Anyhow, he fights crime. You get the idea. Robin is Batman's faithful sidekick by day, and Dick Grayson also by day, since Batman never operates at night in these films since it'd be too hard to shoot. Anyway, he's the kid's sidekick and occasional damsel, though I will say in this movie he's much more proactive than the previous one, and gets more to do. I suppose calling him a damsel in this one is moderately unfair. Vicky is the new love interest, not unlike the 80s and 90s Batman. The serials cycled the love interest, damsel, female friend thing, with Linda Page being the previous love interest, as I said. And Vicky kind of hits the same beats that Lois hit in the Superman serial, since the character was designed to basically try Batman against a Lois Lane-esque love interest.
Do you mind if I get a picture or two for my magazine?
Oh, please don't, Miss Vale. It might upset the patient.
What's the use of being a photographer? Everybody says, please don't take any pictures.
Of course, these days Batman usually ends up with one of his female rogues, be that Catwoman or Talia al Ghul, but it took a fairly long time for that stuff to really gestate into something that was more standard than the thematic flirtations we saw with Catwoman early on. Jimmy Vale is Vicky's brother. He's compulsively tied to crime and pays the ultimate price, pretending to be Batman and dying as he learned crime is bad. This character is pretty functional, but he's okay. I like him enough, I guess. Dr. Paraplegic Man or Professor Hamill is the red herring. As it turns out, the wizard was not secretly handy-capable. Some guy, Carter, we never learn his first name, but we know he's the evil twin to an associate of Professor Hamill. He is the wizard and can turn invisible, and needs diamonds to power his MacGuffin device. Otherwise, he hits all the tropes being him just kind of standing there talking into a CB radio to his goons all day.
Car 4 to headquarters.
Go ahead, Car 4.
We have Morton's formula, but there's a police car trailing us.
Turn into the alley south of Oak Street as planned.
Though unlike some, he leaves his cave briefly while invisible. I don't know, he's fine. The costume's kind of cheap looking and weird, but whatever, it's fine. I do like that some scenes, when he's alone, he just kind of stands there in full costume, because the movie doesn't want to spoil itself, but like, realistically, if I was just talking to my henchmen over a radio that they couldn't see me through, I probably wouldn't need to wear the shitty costume, huh?
I'll start the robot car by remote control.
Tonally, this movie is less melodramatic than the first film. Batman from 1943 had a Batman that aggressively hated the Japanese people and wanted to see them all dead, frankly. Here, Batman fights the Wizard as a hobby since he thinks it's fun. I don't know how to really sugarcoat that simple truth. He's here for shits and giggles and not much more. Jimmy's a crime addict in that he seems like your tweaker cousin that would steal your TV for meth money. This is a theme that is never really explained. He's just kind of evil till he decides not to be evil, so that his death could resolve a Batman death fake out cliffhanger. The music was done by Misha. Again, I'm done trying to pronounce that guy's last name, though I embarrassed myself enough times. The music is serviceable but a bit bland, same as always. Earl Turner edited this film and again did a good job. I like that this one adds some more fun effects to the mix, like the Wizard being an invisible man, and some tricks to facilitate that as well. Hell, I just like that this movie turns to a Batman versus Invisible Man film. Basically, that's fun, even though it's only a relatively small portion of the runtime. Ira H. Morgan shot this film, and it's a bit boring, but he sure has come a long way from the awful Hop Harrigan movie we talked about earlier on. All these films are shot the same way, so I don't know how to elaborate on his cinematography much further. I do think he did a good job, and there were some unique shots for the day despite them seeming elementary by today's standards between academia and technological advances that have happened over the last 80 years. The copy of this film on DVD has a pretty solid scan, and if you can't find the budget DVD for some reason, you can pretty easily find this film on the internet, so that's an option too. Just check archive.org. One thing I like about Bruce Wayne is that despite being called rich, he lives in a normal house, as we see, plus he drives a normal-ass car. He's a superhero on a budget in this one. No bat rockets or anything, dude is just dressed like a jackass beating up suited gangsters. The Batcave also developed a bit from the sitting desk.
Hidden headquarters of America's #1 crime fighter, Batman.
To a more of a lab environment, as we saw in later films in the comics. The bat signal is one of the many stupid pieces of tech that makes no sense, though there are numerous. Like really, that thing projects into the sky without any blurring of the bat symbol. I ran a movie theater, and to project on a reflective film screen, we needed to use a 6500 watt bulb. I say this to say that to project that much light, that little device has to have like 2 million watts. Not to mention this film always takes place in broad daylight, so how would it show? Also, how does Batman always notice the bat signal? What if he's reading a book or something? I guess I don't know what people did in the 1940s, but what if he's inside? It's not like comics where he's just always out at night. In fact, Bruce seemingly has a very full social life. He's always around. Also, at one point, Batman unburns a burnt photo, which is simply not possible.
There's the charred negative.
What's that?
It's known as Ehrlich red. It'll restore the molecular structure of the charred film.
Not to explain science that much because I don't know much about it myself, but what I learned in high school is that there are physical and chemical compound changes. Physical would be the henchman tearing up the photo and Batman taping it back together. That's possible, he could still see the image then. Chemical changes change how the matter is down to the elements and is not fully reversible. Burning is an example of a chemical change. Basically, the matter was burnt. You can't bring it back. He couldn't restore the picture with some magical MacGuffin, but whatever. Like the first movie, Batman and Robin are a set of decent fighters, but not like mass crime fighters. For example, Chapter 5. Batman and Robin together get beaten down by a whopping 3 people. Like fucking how, dude? You're Batman. At one point, the Wizard's gang have a hunch that Bruce Wayne is Batman, so to be in 2 places at once, Bruce convinces Alfred to run around in the Batsuit.
What about Alfred?
think he's safe.
I love this. This is a classic Batman trope that's happened like 1,000 times over the years. It's just that ever classic workaround to pesky plot issues that books sometimes run into. At one point in the final part, the actor tries to put handcuffs on another actor and fails, then they just didn't bother trying to do another take, and they just live with the flubbed take. Like you can see, he clearly doesn't have handcuffs on, and I found it really funny. Overall, this movie's fine. I think I like it enough. It's not as worth watching as the Superman films with Kirk Alyn by any means, but Batman is shockingly hard to adapt, especially in this era, since his powers derive from real life so much that taking an ultra-rich man with fancy gadgets is shockingly expensive to pull off. The Wizard is fine and is a much safer villain than the first film, since it kind of cuts out a lot of the egregious racism and whatnot. Though at the same time, I think the first movie had some more stakes. A fun fact about John Duncanson, who played Robin, is that he pretty much would just do bit parts, but has the distinguished honor of showing up in films by two notable directors back to back as his final two films. Showing up in Ed Wood's Plan 9 from Outer Space, which is widely considered one of the worst films ever, and yeah, it's pretty weird. Then, on the total other end of the spectrum, capping off his career by appearing in Stanley Kubrick's Spartacus, the 2001 A Space Odyssey guy. Crazy he ended his career working with a man largely considered the best director ever, right after working with a man widely considered the worst director ever. Anyhow, as for Batman in film, this would be it for the pseudo-duology of serials, though fear not, because, spoiler alert, Batman has had a ton of film appearances after this, and he still gets them to this day. But next time we talk about Batman, we'll look at Batman, the 1966 version, not the 1989 version or the Batman from 2022.